and welcome to the Z31 300ZX front lower control arm installation video. We already did a product overview on the video going over construction, QC process, that whole aspects in a previous video. If you want to watch that first to get familiarized, you can go ahead and look at the description or just search it. Otherwise, we're going to go over the included items. We're going to be going over the hardware sheets, included items, pre-assembly, installation, and torque specs in the video. So first thing we're going to make sure we have is going to be a pair of the front control arms, a pair of the tension arms, a pair of the U-brackets, a pair of the sway bar links, and a pair of the step washers. Now, we mentioned this in the product overview, but the sway bar links are different between the early Z31s and late. This customer has an early Z31, that's where we're gonna have ones with a bushing. If you have a late year Z31, they're gonna have a stud. Make sure when you order these online that you specify which ones, depending on the toggle of the drop down. And then we have the hardware sheet. The hardware sheet's gonna consist of a bunch of components. You're gonna have a pair of hex bolts, a pair of large socket bolts, a pair of the carriage bolts, and then you're gonna go ahead, we're just gonna go across. A pair of the 1/2-inch nuts, 4 washers, 4 large hex nuts, and 2 5/8 washers, 2 3/8 nuts, 2 3/8 washers, a oversized 5/8 washer, a thick spacer, a 3/4 inch thick washer, some thick 9/16 spacers, as well as 2 smaller socket head bolts. Then you have a 4-pack of these larger misalignment spacers and 4 of these smaller misalignment spacers. So let's go over and do a little bit of pre-assembly. We're gonna go ahead and mount the tension arm to the control arm first. It's easier to usually do it on the table than doing it on the car. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna thread this out a little bit because we thread them in all the way, and usually about 2 to 3 threads sticking out makes life a little bit easier on both ends. Then, taking the solid fixed end, you're gonna go ahead and slide that onto the control arm. Take your socket head bolt and go ahead and push that through. Once that's pushed through, you're going to take the 5/8 washer and 5/8 nuts. And just hand tighten that like that. And then we're gonna go on to the tension arm. So the tension arm, rather simple. You're gonna take the carriage bolt, slip it inside like so. You're gonna take the 2 of the smaller misalignment spacers, toss those on there, orientate the U-brackets, then take the 2 hex, or take the hex 1/2-inch bolt, put a washer, slide it all the way through, followed by a 1/2-inch nut and the mating washer. Then on the back side of this carriage bolt, you're gonna get the 3/4 thick spacer. That way it sits nice and flush. And grab your aluminum step washer, and that's gonna sit on the back. Note the orientation where the step washer sits in the front, or points towards the front of the car essentially. Follow that up with a large 5/8 washer and another 5/8 nut. And again, we're just gonna loosely put everything on there. Then it's gonna be the larger misalignment spacers. You can leave these on or you can take these off. Sometimes while you carry it to the car, they'll fall out, so it's really up to you. We're just doing that just to show where they go. And then the sway bar link. Now the sway bar link you don't have to put in just yet either, but we're just loosely fitting everything up so it really doesn't cause that much of an inconvenience for us. Pretty much just like that. Everything's loose, nothing's tight. We can take this assembly as a whole and bring it to the car. So you're gonna do the same thing to the other side and then take them over to the car. So now we're ready to go ahead and install it on the car. So we are installing it on an Apex crossmember that gives you various amounts of these holes for roll center adjustment. Obviously the factory one doesn't, but we're gonna go ahead and do one from the top because this car is pretty low and it is pretty much a dedicated race car. So in his application, he also likes to have a lot of caster, as much caster as he can. So that's where these spacers come in handy, where you can just add 1 spacer to the front of it, and that way he has as much caster as possible. That's still considered minor caster. The rest of your caster is going to come from the tension arm. but he just wants one spacer. Every customer's driving and driving desires and requirements are gonna be a little different, but that's gonna be him for this one. So you're gonna take the correct side control arm, and we're gonna go ahead and put this through here. And then on the other side here, I have room for 2 spacers in the back. So then from there, you're gonna go ahead and put your crossmember bolts in. Obviously he has our Apex one, so the Apex bolts in. And so it would look something along these lines. Now we're gonna go ahead and install the tension arm side of it, or the power brace side. I'm gonna keep the step washer there. Note the orientation of the step, which will seat inside this guy. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. You might have to tilt this slightly. And then followed by the large washer and the hex nut. Okay, that is it. Then we're gonna be doing the knuckle to the control arm, and then the control arm's knuckle to the strut here pretty shortly. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get these semi-tightened just so it doesn't hang and it's super sloppy like this. Kind of helps us visualize things a little bit better as well. So now that we got this bolt tight and the back bolt tight, it just kind of makes it a little easier. We're gonna talk about what the difference is between the multiple holes here. And in large part, it depends on what your track width you're setting. So we have this double adjuster here, and if you turn it one way, it'll lengthen the control arm. If you turn it the other way, it'll shorten it. I mean, obviously this is at the shortest setting, so it can't. But because you have this double adjuster, depending on how far or how long you're making the control arm is what you would pick out of these holes, so that way you're not causing excessive binding on any of your suspension. So let's say you elongate the control arm, then you're gonna wanna move the sway bar link back, so that way your sway bar links are more vertical rather than at an angle, and same thing with the tension arm. Now, this customer, because he's already had a lot of our parts before, we already know what his settings are. Oftentimes you won't know until you get it on the car and you figure out what track width you like your camber, and then you can go ahead and make these adjustments. And these are there as a safety, because if you run out of thread on here, the rule of thumb is 1.5 times the diameter of thread engagement. So this is a 5/8 thread. So really you, at the minimum, you'd want 1.5 times that amount of thread engagement in the scallop tube. And let's say you run out of that at the settings that you have. That's where these would come in that allow you to rethread some more of this in. It will cause more leverage on the control arm, but because it's fully boxed, strength is really not going to be an issue. But that's what these holes are really there for as far as their adjustability. Now we know what this customer's settings is. He threads this out a little bit. He's the middle sway bar link. He's the middle hole on here, and he has these threaded out a decent amount. Again, it's gonna be different for you, but that's what we're gonna go ahead and set his at. All right, so now that you got hopefully both sides installed, you can go ahead and get everything tightened down. And now we're gonna go ahead and go over torque specs. So we have this socket head bolt right here, the hex head bolt on the tension arm, the large nut on the back, as well as the cross member bolt. If you're using our cross member, those are gonna be to 20 to 25 foot-pounds. And this one will be 20 to 25 foot-pounds if you're using our cross member. If you're using the factory cross member and the factory bolt, obviously the factory spec on that. The sway bar link, anywhere between 10 to 15 is fine. You can even go sometimes less. This really is not a high critical part. And when it comes to the poly bushing on the top, when you go to mount the sway bar, which we will in a separate video here, you wanna make sure that that's just squish and it's tight, but you don't have to over torque that either. Now the ball joint, if you're going to the factory steering knuckle or our steering knuckle with our control arms, you're gonna go anywhere between 30 to 35 foot-pounds on the factory ball joints. Now if you're looking, factory control arms are obviously different, but our control arms with our ball joints, 30 to 35 foot-pounds is good on those. That pretty much covers your torque specs. Now let's go over a few of the adjustments that you get with our control arms. You have caster adjustment like this. You're able to turn it, the control arm itself will move. You have minor caster adjustment depending on placement here. You have camber adjustment or track width adjustment based off turning this one way and the other way. You'll shorten or lengthen your control arm. And that can be considered, you know, minor caster or camber adjustment. Your major camber adjustment would come from your camber plates. That would be mostly your full adjustability. You could in theory adjust toe on the control arm as well, but generally that's recommended to just do it up from the tie rod level, because you'll have better toe adjustability and be able to kind of fine tune it that way. But that covers most of the control arm. Now we're going to go over the steering knuckle installation here in the video, but obviously if you have a factory steering knuckle, you would remove the cotter pin, the castle nut, the washer, put on the factory steering knuckle, washer, castle nut, cotter pin, and then torque that to 30 to 35. But because we're gonna have a full installation video on the steering knuckles and the tie rods, we're gonna go over that as well in a later video. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, concerns, give us a call or shoot us an email. We'll see you on the next one.